Hampshire for the 10th round of the Carlube TVR Tuscan Challenge. We've had some great racing all season, and here at the fastest circuit that the Tuscans visit all year, you can expect more of the same. The man in charge in the championship is Lee Caroline. He's extended his advantage over David Mason, with Philip Keane third, still looking for his first ever Tuscan win. Ben Samuelson's fourth ahead of Darren Dowling, and Wayne Phelan sixth in the championship. And there's no surprise as to who's on pole for the sprint race here, Lee Caroline.
I honestly did think if I didn't get pole here it'd be not so bad, because it's such a fast circuit and the straight's so long round the back that someone's going to get a drag on you the first lap anyway. So, but I'm glad to get it. I mean, we found it hard to find a lap with no traffic, but when I see 16.5 come up on my dash, I thought, right, that'd do, I'll park up regardless.
Alongside him on the front row of the grid, Richard Hay, going well in qualifying. A much better weekend, it seems.
You can't believe the amount these cars move around, and you slide literally all the way around the back at between 140 and 150 miles an hour. It's quite an experience. It's a good ride. You'll enjoy watching some of the onboards.
Third on the grid here, and having only had 2 races in Tuscans, that was at Rockingham, Chris Stockton.
It is awesome. I would think if you're on a passenger ride around here, it would nearly kill you. It would frighten the life out of you.
So just hold on tight to the arms of your chair. The lights are about to go red, engine notes will rise, then the lights will go green, away they go. The sprint race underway, 10 laps around Thruxton, the traditional Duff start from Lee Caroline, and David Mason leads as they go round Allard for the first time, and a spin already. In fact, 2 spinners, and they're the teammates, aren't they? Rod Barrett and Jan Persson have got together already. Up towards the complex then for the first time, Mason leading, Keane second, Chris Stockton third, Richard Hay fourth, and Lee Caroline from pole position down in fifth, with Darren Dowling and Ben Samuelson alongside each other. That was for 6th place, and Chris Stockton thumping the curb, looks to go around the outside of Phil Keane. That doesn't work, and wheel lifting the car's power out of Seagrave and on towards Noble for the first time. It's David Mason then in the lead of the race, Phil Keane second, Stockton third, Hay fourth, and we're on board now with Chris Stockton making his way through Goodwood, onto Village, then up towards Church for the first time. Ultra-fast circuit, Thruxton, and you can see exactly what Richard Hay and Chris Stockton meant about the drag in the interviews before the race, and Stockton then tries to find a way past Phil Keane. He can't quite do it, but he's right up behind Keane now as they make the run up towards the chicane. Moving to the inside, Keane defends, and as they come now into the braking area for the first time, it's Mason leading with Caroline, going up on the inside of Richard Hay there for 4th place. Lee Caroline goes through, and this a replay of David Mason's demon start. Lights go to green, Lee Caroline chugs away from the line. Mason nips round him and into the lead, approaching the first corner, and that is easily done for David Mason. Now, though, things are becoming a little bit more frenetic behind him. He's got Phil Keane tucked up behind him, and Keane under pressure from Chris Stockton, who almost touches him there. Right on the limit, making their way out of Goodwood, on towards Village. Philip Keane now in 2nd place, right up behind David Mason, right up alongside David Mason, going past David Mason. Keane leads, they touch. Philip Keane just gets away with it. Mason forced wide, and now Chris Stockton goes ahead of him as well, and Lee Caroline moves through on the inside. So David Mason was leading, now he's down to 4th. It's Keane leading, Stockton leading Caroline, but Caroline tries to go around the outside of 1. Can he go around the outside of 2? Not quite. David Mason shoves his nose back up on the inside. Caroline just touches the back of Stockton. Mason over the curb there, look. Fantastic racing. Lee Caroline forced wide. Richard Hay up on the inside now with the dark blue car there. Hay scrabbles past Caroline into 4th place. So the race leader is Keane, 2nd is Stockton, 3rd is Mason, and up towards the complex they go this time with Chris Stockton closing, and now alongside Phil Keane for the lead there. Can he go through? Yes, he can. Chris Stockton, in his 3rd ever Tuscan race, takes the lead away from Philip Keane. The ex-Andy Britnell car then, driven by Chris Stockton, leads, lifts a wheel as it powers them up through Seagrave on towards the left-hander of Noble. Chris Stockton from Formula Ford and Legends Racing ahead of ex-Formula Renault man Phil Keane in 3rd place. David Mason as the cars accelerate around them for the 4th time, and you can see now as we're on board with David Mason exactly how he lost the lead a lap ago. Up on the inside goes Keane, there's a little nudge. Mason forced offline, and suddenly he's in trouble. Past him goes Stockton, and past him goes Caroline. Great battles going on then now for 2nd place between Mason and Keane. And Caroline, Mason is ahead of Keane, but for how much longer? Philip Keane now tries to wriggle up on the inside line there. Lee Caroline right up behind the pair. Richard Hay 5th and just dropping away a little bit now. Chris Stockton, though, has gone, hasn't he, as far as the lead is concerned. He's building up the advantages there. Keane goes through, Caroline goes through as well. David Mason tries he might, still keeps getting pushed down the order. Now he's 4th, and Richard Hay's joining back in again. Up they come, into the chicane for second and third. Keane just ahead of Caroline. In fourth place then is Mason, and Richard Hay has been helped really by them all battling ahead. They've slowed one another up, and that means that he's now right with them. Up across the line they now come. Chris Stockton trying to build up the advantage. Keane second, Caroline third, Mason fourth. David Mason right on the limit there, the car sliding. In the meantime, Wayne Phelan comes through ahead of Pete Osborne, then Andy Holden, who made his Tuscan debut at Rockingham. Andy Holden there in the third of the InWeb Insane Racing cars, comes across the line. They're going through number 9, Carl Hansen, the New Zealander. He races the TVR in the New Zealand GT series. And the reason he's doing this race is because he's in a car run by CDL. He'll drive for CDL in the Bathurst 24 Hours. He's getting used to the team as Lee Caroline gets used to second place. He goes ahead of Phil Keane on the inside. There wasn't very much room, but Lee Caroline takes full advantage of the limited gap, moves ahead of Phil Keane, and now we'll try to bring the gap down to Chris Stockton. Stockton the leader, second is Caroline, third is sideways Keane, fourth is Mason, and the battle here between Andy Holden and Pete Osborne continues. They both got themselves ahead this time of Wayne Phelan. Phelan fighting back, Carl Hansen running with them, as the cars now make the run once more up towards the chicane. Carl Hansen then sees the InWeb cars ahead, shuffling the order around with Pete Osborne. And now Chris Stockton is being reeled in by Lee Caroline as they make the run out of the chicane, up across the line. Past the pits goes Chris Stockton. Lee Caroline, once again, good news for us, making a bad start. And now Stockton running wide in the first corner. Stockton misses the apex at Allard, and through easily goes Lee Caroline. Lee Caroline takes over the lead as they go into the complex then. Stockton slips to second. In third place is Keane. In fourth place is David Mason. And that, I suspect, is it as far as now Lee Caroline and the lead is concerned. He's going to pull away, surely, from Chris Stockton. Making their way up then now, heading towards the left-hander of Noble, Lee Caroline, who, as tradition dictates, did fewer laps than most in qualifying. Therefore, his tyres are in better order. He's leading from Chris Stockton, but Stockton is under pressure from Keane. And Lee Caroline is being caught again by Chris Stockton here. He's not going to get away. Stockton is right up behind Lee Caroline. He's going to have a look alongside Lee Caroline as they make the run up now through Village on towards Church. Can Chris Stockton get the lead back? I reckon he can on the inside here, coming into the right-hander. Chris Stockton goes through on the inside. What a move. Chris Stockton takes the lead back. So Lee Caroline slips to second once again. They're going to come through in a moment to start the last lap of the race, but Phil Keane is attacking Caroline as well now. Up to the chicane. Which way does Stockton defend? Phil Keane right alongside. Stockton gets all sideways into the chicane. Stockton hits the curb. Keane across the curb. Stockton across the curb. They touch as well as they come out of the corner. They lean on each other and now make the run up across the line. Stockton ahead. He's got both Caroline and Keane behind him and attacking, and despite the best efforts of all of them, they still can't unsettle Chris Stockton. Heading now up towards the complex. Is this going to be a race win for Stockton, or is Caroline or Keane or Mason going to get ahead of him? This has been a tremendous race, and Chris Stockton now is just ahead as they make the run through the complex. Chris Stockton leads by a length. In second place is Lee Caroline. In third is Keane. Fourth is Mason. And David Mason attacking now as the air gets under the bonnet, threatens to rip the bodywork off the front of the car. Chris Stockton has done everything right. He's led, he's built up a lead, he's had that eroded by Caroline, he's lost the lead, he's fought back. And Chris Stockton is still leading that as the cars make the run up towards Church for the last time. The cars all now, as the tyres wear through the race, getting a little bit loose at the back, and the car's becoming a real handful. David Mason swings right. They've got the run now, out of Church, up through Brooklands, heading towards the chicane. And now, this is it as far as Stockton and Caroline are concerned. They've got the run to the chicane, and this will decide the race as Lee Caroline comes powering up on the outside. He takes the lead. Lee Caroline leads coming into the chicane, but Chris Stockton tries to go around him on the outside line there. They're almost alongside each other, but it's not to be for Stockton. Lee Caroline's got the line through the chicane. He's going to win for the 14th time in the Carloom TVR Tuscan Challenge. There's the checkered flag. Lee Caroline wins a tremendous race. Chris Stockton takes second, third Keane, fourth Mason, fifth Hay as they come across the line. And rather overshadowed by that five-car battle for the lead. Ben Samuelson sixth, ahead of Tim Hood, Darren Dowling, Andy Holden, and Pete Osborne in 10th place. The feature race coming up here after the break. Don't go away. We're back at Thruxton for the feature race of the Carloom TVR Tuscan Challenge. This runs over 12 laps, the grid based on the results of yesterday's race. And that means that on pole position is Lee Caroline with Chris Stockton alongside him. The second row, Philip Keane and David Mason. The third row, Richard Hay and Ben Samuelson. The grid is complete. Richard Stanton joining this race at the back of the field. He'll be a man to watch as well. He missed yesterday's race. The lights then are about to go from red to green. Let's see then who's going to make the best start. Lights are red, engine notes rise. Bit of creeping from Lee Caroline. Lights go to green now, and away they go. Richard Stanton on the move from the back of the grid. Who's going to lead at the first corner? It's just going to be Lee Caroline then, with Chris Thruxton alongside him on the outside, heading up towards the complex. Caroline leads, second is Stockton, third Mason, bit of leaning there. Carl Hansen gets tipped sideways onto the grass, back onto the circuit, demolishes one of the corner markers there, and I think it may have been Hugh Marshall, his CDL teammate, that hit him, and Carl Hansen still sorting out a big slide as he arrives at the complex. The Kiwi having a baptism of fire then, first race ever in a Tuscan and at Thruxton as Chris Stockton goes up the inside of Lee Caroline, takes the lead at Church. Through he goes, but Stockton runs widely. Caroline comes back at him on the inside. They're side by side there, the pair of them, making the run up towards the chicane for the first time. Now you're on board with David Mason. Mason in third, in second, up on the inside. No, back to third again as Chris Stockton goes around the outside of him and tries to get alongside Lee Caroline. And Caroline leads at the end of lap one. Stockton second, then third is David Mason. Fourth is Philip Keane as they make the run up across the line. Already this leading quartet getting away from the Richard Hay, Ben Samuelson battle for fifth, and this is a replay of Carl Hansen being tapped into a little slide. Wait for it! Bang! Round he goes, all over the grass, hits the polystyrene, and Carl Hansen miraculously keeps it away from anything solid, throws it sideways into the complex, gets his heart rate back to normal and carries on. Race leaders there, headed by Lee Caroline, then the battle behind is Stockton, Mason and Keane, and Chris Stockton's car getting a bit loose there. You see the back of it trying to come round on him. Lee Caroline is the race leader. Well, normally when Caroline gets ahead, he pulls away. It's happening now a little bit as Chris Stockton goes very wide. He allows David Mason now up on the inside. The one-time MGF racer, Mason goes through ahead of ex-Legends racer Chris Stockton. So Mason goes second, Stockton down to third. And in fourth place, Philip Keane heading up then towards the chicane once more. Stockton ideally placed to fight back. He's getting a toe off Mason. He has a look on the inside. Is this going to be it? No, David Mason's wise to this. He moves across, covers the line. In front of the grandstands, they bump the curb. Right, left, right again. Out of the chicane, up now, over the start and finish line. And the race leader, Lee Caroline, is getting away. There's Richard Stanton on the move. He's already broken into the top 10, and Stanton from flat last on the grid doing a great job here. Richard Hay having a fairly miserable time. He's dropped away behind Tim Hood and Dowling and Samuelson. And Richard Hay, bearing in mind that he was on the front row of the grid for the sprint race, has had another fairly miserable time here. He's dropped down and down the order, and now certainly he's out of the hunt as far as a good result here is concerned. Four of them vying for the lead. Caroline with Mason catching him again, I reckon. In third place is Stockton, and fourth is Philip Keane here. Caroline getting away. He was earlier, being caught now, but is he going to be able to respond? If that battle rages on behind, he's going to get away, but Mason and Stockton are together, and Stockton now pulls out of the draft, gets alongside Mason's car. They make the run up Woodham Hill, heading towards the chicane. David Mason just getting his nose in front. They almost rub one another there into the braking area. Chris Stockton back on the inside, should go through. Yes, he does. Chris Stockton is second once again, and Lee Caroline is not escaping here. Over the line. Through they go, the order: Caroline, Stockton, Mason, and then Philip Keane, and he's somebody else that you shouldn't rule out here. Keane's still very determined to have a first Tuscan win. He's done the whole season. He made his Tuscan debut here last year, so he should go well around Thruxton in one of these cars. In the meantime, Mason running a bit wide at the complex, loses a length to Stockton, and Chris Stockton now hunting down Lee Caroline for the lead. Through Campbell, Cobb and Seagrave they go at the complex. Now up towards the left-hander at Noble. They're on board with Chris Stockton ahead. Is a rather loose-looking Lee Caroline who gets it a little bit crossed up and then gives Stockton a chance on the inside. Chris Stockton tries to go for it. The door is closed, and now as they make the run up through Goodwood on towards Village, the race leader is Lee Caroline, but Chris Stockton is now giving him a really hard time in second place here. The two of them nose to tail. And Stockton now is ideally placed to challenge as they come up the hill, and he goes to the inside then. He's not going to get him alongside. He's going to have to be brave here. Lee Caroline might just have enough grunt in a straight line to hang on to the advantage. He does, but Stockton is going to come through nonetheless on the inside then. Throws the car up the inside. Through he goes. Chris Stockton with a very brave move takes over the lead. That delays Lee Caroline sufficiently to give David Mason a chance to latch onto the tail as well. Over the line they go. The new order: Stockton, Caroline, Mason. And Philip Keane here just possibly waiting for it to end in tears ahead of him. He's not falling away too much here from David Mason, but at the moment he's not really able to threaten them either. Into the complex they come. So Stockton ahead of Caroline and then Mason. Keane sideways as he tries to join in again. But these three cars now absolutely nose to tail. The impecunious David Mason right up behind Lee Caroline now. Chris Stockton, only his 4th ever Tuscan race, remember. He leads Lee Caroline. In 3rd place is David Mason. In 4th place, Philip Keane. It took Lee Caroline until his 2nd season to have a TVR win. It took David Mason until his 2nd season to have a TVR win. And now, the man in charge, Chris Stockton, well, his 1st season, his 4th race, he's led all of them. He makes his way then now on through Church, out of the right-hander, back on the power. You're looking from David Mason's car at the back of Lee Caroline. Caroline running wide up onto the curb. Now the car's head up Woodham Hill towards the chicane. Is this Mason's chance to have a go for the lead? No. For 2nd, he might be able to have a look, though. He's not going to be able to outbrake 2 cars. Can he outbrake 1? No, he can't. Lee Caroline has the line for the corner. He's still then stuck behind Caroline in 3rd place. David Mason makes the run out of the chicane, up across the start and finish line. And all the while, Mason's got to keep an eye to his mirrors, of course, because Philip Keane is right up there behind him as well. Caroline a little bit sideways round Allard. Now Mason looks to get the run on him as they head up towards the complex once again. Into the braking area they go. Philip Keane kicking up the dirt there. Chris Stockton locks up, slides into the complex. He's not getting away though here, despite the best efforts of David Mason to delay Lee Caroline and battle with him for 2nd place. It's not really helping. Chris Stockton in the lead. Philip Keane still in 4th place here, just looking for a gap to get past David Mason. Mason stuck behind Caroline. But Chris Stockton, you said it before, in the context of the Rockingham races and the sprint race here, very impressive newcomer is there. Keane throws the car up the inside of Mason. Mason sideways as he retaliates, and sideways again. David Mason giving his tyres a lot of stick, but great car control. Mason, like Lee Caroline, somebody with an oval racing background where you've got to have good car control, and it shows perhaps more in these cars than any other. But through on the inside goes Philip Keane. Phil Keane, from a very precise single-seater background in Formula Renault racing, is being caught again by Mason, who's getting a tow as they head up the hill. The leaders are pairing off, the 3rd place duel pairing off this time as Mason tries to go around the outside of Keane, and they touch, then coming into the chicane and they touch again. Mason bouncing his way over the curb. Phil Keane hangs on to 3rd place. David Mason still then in 4th as they come across the line. This is another excellent race. People have complained a little bit about the entry sizes in TVR Tuscan racing this year. Well, if the racing's as good as this, it doesn't really matter. We haven't had a bad race all year, I don't think, in the TVR Tuscan Challenge. And here is another tremendous race as Richard Hay heads for the pit lane. Sees the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, stands on the brakes. Meantime, David Mason and Philip Keane are still locked together for 3rd place. Keane on the inside at Noble. Round the outside, tries to go David Mason. That'll give him the inside line for Goodwood, but he can't go through there. David Mason then tries to battle his way past Philip Keane, but to no avail. Here are the leaders. Stockton versus Caroline. The 3rd is Keane versus Mason. Accelerating now on towards Church. You're on board again with David Mason as they turn right, touch the curb, then on the inside at Church. And now, because the cars have already had a free practice, a qualifying session and 1 race, these tyres are starting to get a little bit past their best. All the cars sliding around a little bit more now. Philip Keane brakes late, coming down to the chicane. David Mason right up behind him. Where's the gap? No gap. Phil Keane hangs on to his 3rd place with Mason almost pushing him through the chicane. Stockton leading. 2nd is Lee Caroline. And here for 3rd and 4th over the line, David Mason again having a look on the inside to get past Philip Keane. Still can't find a way by. Behind them, by the way, Richard Stanton is still making excellent progress up through the field. Before long, I reckon he is going to break into the top 6. Now you can see them. Mason again behind Keane, who runs a little bit wide, going into Campbell. That's the right-hander, then left through Cobb, then right again through Seagrave. Mason gets a tighter line, coming into the corner, makes the run now alongside Philip Keane, but he's going to be on the wrong line for the next corner of Noble. Philip Keane can stay on the inside and should take 3rd place back again. He does. They're still side by side. David Mason's got the inside line for the next corner. Now he goes through. Now David Mason asserts himself and takes 3rd place away. In the meantime, Chris Stockton is still ahead of Lee Caroline. Is Caroline playing with him, or can he genuinely not catch up? Remember, we saw this in the sprint race. Here's a replay, though. Oh, David Mason going around the outside of Philip Keane. They touch at the chicane. They touch again and again as Mason tries to drive himself onto a line. Instead, he drives himself onto the curb. The car fishtails back onto the road, and Chris Stockton is still ahead of Lee Caroline. Now, can Caroline genuinely not get past, or is he just sitting there behind Chris Stockton and content to make his move on the last lap. Stockton a little bit ragged out of church that time as the car bounces wide. Lee Caroline makes the run up alongside him now as they head up Woodham Hill towards the chicane. Lee Caroline powers past. Chris Stockton sits behind him, coming into the braking area. Is there a gap? No, there isn't. Lee Caroline's wise to all of this. Through the chicane they come then, turn right, left over the curve, right again. Chris Stockton coming through now to start the last lap in second place behind Lee Caroline. Has Caroline now done enough to keep Stockton at bay? Third is Mason. Fourth is Philip Keane as they come across the line. In fifth place is Richard Stanton, ahead now of Ben Samuelson. And the race leaders make the run up towards the complex for the last time. Big crowd here at Thruxton this weekend to watch some very exciting racing. Lee Caroline clipping the curb then as he turns into Campbell. Now left through Cobb, right into Seagrave. Lee Caroline's car sliding around ever more. You can see there in second place Chris Stockton. And Stockton has not given up yet. Now, can Caroline get away on this last lap? I don't think he can. Chris Stockton is keeping him honest. He has a look on the inside, going into Noble here for the lead. They're side by side. Caroline slides. Stockton goes past him. Chris Stockton takes the lead on the last lap of the race. Now, Lee Caroline possibly is going to be okay to get the lead back. We've still got half a lap to run, including the real slipstreamy part of the circuit up the hill towards the chicane.